Good morning, everybody. I do not know what has happened to the summer this year, but it hasn't arrived yet, or it's over, or it's not. Anyway, we're all of us going to have some breakfast at the local cafe, and I'm going to have a nice big coffee, and then we're going to talk about some of the many news stories that have cropped up over the last week or two that I'm just absolutely desperate to talk about. And nobody else in my family wants to hear about them, so I'm afraid you guys are it. No, it'll be fun, it'll be interesting. There is actually genuinely interesting stuff. We'll walk the dog first though. Free breakfast at the local cafe. It is not particularly busy. I need to find a way of helping to promote these sorts of things because people are missing out. Anyway, Jasper's enjoying his free breakfast though. I think he gets a pan au chocolat after the cereals. That's cool. And I've got my coffee. Oh. Would have been my dad's birthday today. It's kind of... I don't know. I miss him. I suppose that's how it goes with parents when they're no longer with you. Right, okay. No, I went round to see my mum. It's more or less the end of the day now. So I just wanted to, there's a few things that I've been wanting to talk about because I've been sort of queuing up interesting stories that have been on my phone for a while now. So as you may remember, the UK has got a new government as of a few weeks ago, and this new government seems particularly keen on the idea of, and this is something that I have always thought was a very sensible thing to do, which is actually sort of promoting renewable energy. Because if you promote renewable energy, then what happens is you create jobs right here in the UK. You also reduce our reliance on foreign energy sources, which is a net benefit for the whole economy, because if we need to import oil, or we need to import anything really, gas, electricity even across power lines, but any kind of form of energy that you import, people don't send that stuff here for free. This country has to send money back out, and that then employs people in other countries who are working on extracting or generating that energy that then gets sent here. So surely it's better to just have that work done in this country from a macroeconomic point of view. So I've always thought that renewable energy in particular is a great way to promote homegrown business, homegrown jobs, and just generally make the economy a more efficient engine for growth and prosperity. That's what I think. And it turns out that is actually what the new Labour government seems to believe as well. And one of the key sticking points that we've had in this country has been planning laws, because the previous government, they did a thing where they basically put in the national planning guidelines a bit of a caveat that was specific to wind farms, which basically said that if one person complains about it, then it can't be built. They don't like the looks, so it can't be built. And that kind of thing used to drive me mad, because firstly, a wind turbine is not going to impact the environment to an enormous amount. After a while, you can dig it up and remove it, and the land will be right, just as it was before, basically. So that's point number one. And the other point is, we need energy. We have a lot of wind here. Onshore is easily the most financially efficient form of wind power, because fundamentally the problem with the sea is seawater is very corrosive, and it has a nasty habit of sort of lapping up against the sort of bottom of the wind turbine. And what happens is, over a not particularly long period of time, it just knackers the metal, basically. It wears it out. So you have to build around that. These things have got a shorter shelf life, plus because you're in the ocean, insurance costs are high, construction costs are high. It's not that it isn't doable, and of course it is doable and it does get done, but it is a much more expensive way to generate renewable energy. And so the government has decided that they're going to scrap that and go back to more of a sensible thing, which means that fundamentally the ban on onshore wind is gone, which is great. I mean, I always say to like friends and family, as far as I'm concerned, if people are like, oh, I don't want wind farm on the horizon where it's going to ruin my view of I don't know what, then as far as I'm concerned, that's fine. I'm perfectly happy for them to, put a stop to that wind farm on the proviso that they get disconnected from the grid. And I think that's a fair swap. You can keep the view, but we're not going to sell you any electricity from the grid. I'm quite sure the number of complaints would drop substantially if the option was, wind farm on the horizon or no electricity. Anyway, and the other form of renewable energy that seems to be, it seems to be only a day or two between stories that I read about a new solar farm being granted planning permission. And actually it'd be quite interesting to just sort of total up the total number of houses that that would power, but I'm pretty sure we're up to hundreds of thousands from the many acres worth of solar panels that now have planning permission. And yes, you still get loads of local people complaining about them, but the thing about solar panels is they're even better than wind farms. They make no noise. Once they're installed, they have very little to no impact on the environment. You still get grass underneath them. You can still graze sheep underneath them if that's, what the farmer wants to do. Yes, you can't turn it into arable land, but honestly, arable land is not great for the environment. It might be good for feeding us, but it's not good for the environment. So actually, in that respect, a solar farm is much better for the local environment. You're going to get wildflowers, you're going to get pollinators that can come in and do that. You might actually find that the fields around the solar farm actually do better from the additional pollination that is generated by having more bees and various other pollinators in that environment. So I think solar is great. Honestly, I've always thought solar is great. I think it's like magic, quite honestly. It just generates power, totally silent, no pollution. It's low. You're not really going to see it. I suppose if it's on the side of a hill and you look at that side of the hill, you are going to see them. But it's still not the same thing as somebody putting a dirty, great coal plant up there or a gas-fired power station. If somebody wanted to build one of those anywhere near my house, yeah, I would absolutely complain. But if somebody wanted to coat the fields around this village in solar panels, I'd have no problem with that whatsoever. None. Admittedly, as it's being constructed, there's going to be some disruption, but even then, it's not going to be a continuous and ongoing disruption. It's going to be disruption for a year or two until it's built, and then for 25 years, you'll get very little to no disruption or interference. And of course, one of the other benefits of having a higher mix of renewable energy in your, national grid is that it does reduce your dependence on fossil fuels, which can be quite volatile. The war in Ukraine, for example, has had quite an impact on the price of gas and oil and all the rest of it. And these things historically do fluctuate by quite huge margins, especially oil, actually. It really does. It goes up and down in ridiculous amounts. And so decoupling as much as possible from that fluctuation can only be good for your wallet, surely, as a country and as an individual. It's one of the reasons why I thought my mum should put solar panels on her roof, and she did. She has a heat pump, so she's not going to be influenced by the price of gas anyway, so that perhaps the solar panels can have a little bit of an extra influence for her. Fundamentally, the more renewables you have in your mix, for example, like my mum, the less the price fluctuation is going to make a difference to you. So yeah, I think it's great. Renewables, yay. Do we have a bit of a grid storage issue that needs sorting out? Well, yeah, that's something that a lot of countries are having to deal with. And there are solutions in the works. And I expect that those solutions will start to be invested in. And I hope, I think the UK government's going to set up a sort of Great British Energy company. And one of the things I would certainly like to see the government do is actually take a bit of a lead on working out what a really good, viable, sustainable and scalable grid storage energy system looks like. whether that's drilling deep holes and pouring water into it, you know, when you need the energy to come back out, and then pumping it back up otherwise, or whatever the solution they come up with, whether it's, I mean, the reservoirs and hydroelectric it works better when you have more mountains, and England is relatively flat. It's not that it's impossible to do it, but it's difficult to do it at scale because of the availability of mountains, and then you're still talking about flooding valleys in order to do that. So there's, you know, quite a lot of infrastructure and environmental damage that goes along with that. So I'm not 100% sure that's the solution. You could do sort of like a molten salt, you know, energy storage system perhaps, or, and I think this is actually quite a good one, you could try and work out how to industrialize the Sabatier process and make huge quantities of methane, which you can then compress and store in massive great tanks, and then when you need energy you can run that through a gas-fired power station, which we already have plenty of, and that would be a great way to store energy. It would be a nice dense medium, with the exception of the Sabatier process, which is not a fully industrialized system. Yeah, it's not sort of, you don't get massive plants that take CO2 out of the atmosphere, apply energy to it and turn it into methane. It's not an industrial scale process that happens. And the other danger with that, of course, is if you allow that sort of thing, you know, if you make methane your go-to energy storage solution, then there's always the temptation to just say, well, you know what, we could just take some extra gas from somewhere else and store that because it would be cheaper than making our own. And that's true, but it ignores the fact that you've got energy that you need to do something with, or it'll get wasted from renewables. So yeah, there's a lot of things that need working out, but one thing's for sure, better that we all work on it in this country than we just let other countries do whatever and just buy fuel. That's what I think. And that seems to be what the government thinks, which is a real breath of fresh air. So yeah, I'm quite positive that things are moving in the right direction. And that was what I wanted to talk about today. I hope you've found today's video interesting and fun. Let me know what you think. What is the future? I mean, I definitely think more renewables is a good thing. I mean, it's going to be hard for anyone to convince me that that's not the case. But I think the real question is, how are we going to store that energy? Especially because we have dark winters. Not sure about that. Anyway, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And hopefully I will see you in my next video. And if you want, you can follow me on Instagram and X, links in the description. I want to say a massive thank you to my Patreon supporters. And also, if you want another way to save a bit of money yourself and also help the channel out, and you want to switch your energy supplier and you're not already with Octopus, I have an Octopus Referral link, which is in the description, and we'll get to share a £100 sign-on bonus if you switch to them. Anyway, I hope to see you all in my next video. Take care and bye.